What are the stages of reading development? According to Harp and Brewer, the continuum of reading development does not have a clear beginning point unless it's said that birth is the beginning of learning to use language and therefore the beginning of reading. It also has no end point as we encourage readers to become lifelong learners. As a reading specialist, it becomes my job to guide students through this process and give them the necessary scaffolding and support to develop successful readers. What are the stages of writing development? As soon as children begin to make marks with writing instruments, they are beginning to learn about written language and how it works. It is important to encourage writing daily, especially across the curriculum, to develop strong writers and transition students throughout these stages. What is the continuum of theoretical approaches from which I must draw upon when teaching, and who are the important theorists and researchers in the field of literacy, and what is their impact on my instructional practices? Well, when teaching, I draw upon many theoretical approaches, including a combination of bottom-up theory, top-down theory, transactional theory, and critical theory. Many models have extended from these theories, such as the skills model, or phonics first approach, whole language model, reader response model, for research source model, and the Halliday Plus model. How has the field of literacy developed over the past 50 years? Unfortunately, the shift from phonics-based instruction to whole language in the 80s caused many students to struggle with meeting literacy goals. This caused a reform in how literacy practices were being implemented, and now a more balanced approach can be seen. Currently, teachers utilize the 5 components of reading in their daily instruction, including phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. We'll get to that in a little bit. Additionally, teachers are now encouraged to look beyond the restrictions of the traditional approaches to reading instruction and to use research evidence to gain an understanding of the reading process that allows them to make clearer and more purposeful instructional decisions. What are the components of reading, and how have I implemented these approaches in my program? Phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension are usually referred to as the 5 components of reading according to the National Reading Panel, but work together to fully support literacy development. The ability to divide oral speech into the smallest units of sound is defined as phonemic awareness. Matching these units of sound to letters is the beginning of phonics, which is defined as the consistent relationship between sounds and letters. Vocabulary refers to the words and terms students decode and comprehend to make sense of the text. Fluency is the ability to read a text with automaticity, expression, and prosody. And lastly, comprehension is the understanding that occurs when a set of skills and strategies are applied during reading. What important theoretical and practical issues must I grapple with as I try to maximize student achievement? To maximize student achievement, it becomes my duty to differentiate my instruction to meet my students' needs. Some students begin reading on such a lower level that they simply cannot comprehend grade-level text. Therefore, I ensure their success by implementing instruction across each of these 5 areas, including brief mini-lessons on phonemic awareness and phonics rules. I continue this until they have a deeper understanding of the foundations of reading. Eventually, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension will begin to make better sense. Although this can prove challenging to provide such vast amounts of differentiation, I have learned, however, that literacy instruction is the most effective with a scientific approach to research that encompasses balance with the best practices of literacy instruction. I'm going to read it, and then when I point to you, you're going to read it after me. Okay? A wise old owl.
A wise old owl.
A wise old owl sat in an oak.
A wise old owl sat in an oak.
Good. How do the theories discussed in Standard 1 play out in general classroom reading and writing instruction? The theories I listed in Standard 1 are utilized in several different ways throughout my classroom in reading and writing. With the bottom-up theory, I use direct instruction of specific reading strategies, phonemic awareness applications, phonics rules, and spelling rules. In regards to constructivism, many theoretical approaches are supported with activities such as brainstorming, webbing, or mapping for schema theory, responding to reading for transactional theory, making meaningful and authentic connections with a text for the top-down theory, utilizing fix-up strategies during reading for the metacognitive theory, and emphasizing on choice literacy activities and providing an availability of a wide variety of text genres to enhance the engagement theory. To incorporate and support the theoretical approaches of the social learning perspectives, I choose activities such as literature circles, cross-age and buddy reading, modeling, and teaching students about the social and political consequences of literacy. The following video demonstrates cross-age buddy reading in action.
We'll probably get off the so take a bath. So I choose for some bubbles. When you get rid of them, we'll probably ask you for a toy. You'll have to find your rubber.
How does knowledge from these assessments help me inform the instruction of my students? Depending on the skill being taught will determine which assessments the teacher should use. For example, when working on fluency, a reading teacher would want to test their students' ability with running records and miscue analysis records. These forms track students' miscues and determine how many words a minute they are able to successfully read. If the teacher would like to assess comprehension, there are a variety of tools that can help do this. Reading and writing journals and logs help the teacher identify if students are making the correct connections with text. Graphic organizers and semantic maps also help to visually break down and sort vocabulary words for students to make additional connections. Semantic maps provide the additional benefit of helping students visualize how word meanings can be categorized. Furthermore, vocabulary games such as charades and activities where students write vocabulary paragraphs also helps in the assessment process.
I already know that they eat chicken on Sundays. One connection that I made is I eat chicken on Sundays with cornbread. And when I understand the text because I know the characters feel like they can trust each other, relax, and feel comfortable because I feel it when I'm with my family.
Based on your reading coursework, what strategies do you recommend to match children with appropriate text based on their abilities and interests? Once I know my students' reading interests and abilities, there are many strategies that I can recommend to match them with appropriate texts. First of all, independent readers should only be reading text that is on or slightly above the recommended reading level. This ensures the reader to develop automaticity with reading, but most importantly, this prevents frustration. It is critical to consistently monitor a child's reading level with various formative assessments and frequently increase the level of difficulty when appropriate so that the child's reading capacity is steadily improving. Next, it is extremely important to expose readers in a wide variety of authentic text genres and topics. Most students become more motivated when they are given a choice topic to read and write about. If the interest inventories declare that a student loves all kinds of snakes, I would be sure to include many different kinds of books, both fiction and nonfiction, about snakes. How do I foster lifelong reading in my classroom? A strategy to develop lifelong readers is to introduce students to author studies and book shares. This year I developed literacy sessions with a student and introduced her to author Patricia Polacco. Many of our studies throughout the semester incorporated her books such as Chicken Sunday, Thank You, Mr. Fokker, and Pink and Say. Because my student enjoyed these books so much, she is now motivated to find additional books written by Polacco to continue reading on her own.
I've been reading books about Patricia Polacco a lot since we've been studying on them. And I noticed that in most of the books you have real pictures that happen in Patricia's life. Yes, because they're all about someone's life, and then they all have a good ending. Like Mr. Fokker, it's when one little girl, she doesn't know, like she did not know to read, and she's been all the way to 5th grade. But this teacher, Mr. Fokker, right here, he had teached her to read more.
Okay. And which Patricia Polacco book would you say is your favorite?
I say Chicken Sunday because it talks all about chicken, which is my favorite.
Oh, I see. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Based on work in your practicum, what have you practiced regarding observing and working with new teachers and other colleagues? During my practicum, I worked on observing a 3rd grade EIP teacher at the elementary school I worked at. I learned a lot about how to record notes that included both the teachers' and students' activities. There were a few instances where I noticed improvements could be made, including student seating and engagement. During our conferences, I would continuously present my criticism constructively and always begin with a positive comment before any negative ones. The ideas and suggestions I offered always put the children's best interests first. The teacher and I worked together to create anchor charts and move desks into collaborative groups and incorporated exit tickets that encouraged literacy reflection. We also designed reading portfolios and established a routine with this, just in the short amount of time I was able to work with her and the class. I was thoroughly impressed with her and myself and became especially excited to become a reading specialist at this time. How have these experiences prepared you to assume a leadership role within a school? While working with this class, I began to feel more comfortable each time during instruction, although in the beginning I felt intimidated and nervous. The entire process was engaging and fun, and I really became prepared to assume a leadership role by the end of my practicum. I was given the experience needed to gain enough confidence to know I can do this job both efficiently and effectively. I am extremely excited to become a reading specialist, and I hope to get the chance to do this sooner than later.